Hey guys, my name is Yuvraj, and in this video, I'm going to give you a quick, brief, fast overview of the Schema Pro plugin. You can also call it a walkthrough because we're going to explore the settings, how to add schema, and all the good stuff that is inside Schema Pro. If you don't know what Schema Pro is, it's a one-stop, one single plugin that will help you manage, create, and do everything with schema that you need to do. So the intention of this video is to make you familiar with the plugin if you already bought it or you've been using it for some time, but you're not sure how to actually use it. And even if you haven't bought it and you are out in the market looking for a schema plugin, then you should definitely watch this video. And especially if you haven't bought the plugin yet, then you should definitely watch this video because I have an exciting offer for you, a free gift, but I'll only give it to you if you watch this video till the end. So make sure to stick around till the end of this video. And while you're at it, if you like this kind of content, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel Brainstorm Force because we create some amazing content for you out there. Also hit the bell icon, don't forget about that. Quite a big long introduction. Coming back to the meat of the video. First, so let's talk about what is schema. For people or for you, if you're not sure if what a schema is or do you need to actually use it on your website, is it that really important? Can your website do without it? Well, I'll give you some examples, but first let me give you a bit of a background. If you observe the Google search results in the past approximate 1 to 1.5 years, then you probably have noticed that most of the results or the search pages are becoming rich. What do I mean by rich? Let me show you some examples. Let's start with the first example. Let's assume I'm trying to buy some concert tickets for Metallica, and when I just Google the term Metallica concerts, I get these rich results. I get some additional information. I get a knowledge graph in the end. I get some embedded videos, and if I scroll down, I also get reviews and number of votes, star ratings, and also links to buy the tickets for specific events or specific concerts directly in the search results. This is an example of rich results. Coming to another example, if I search for chiropractors, then instead of these links, I get the Google My Business listings first in the search results, which is another example of rich results. Coming to another example, if I'm looking for the Apple Series 6 watch review, then instead of the results, I have first videos, and then even in the reviews, I'm getting ratings, star ratings, and a bunch of other information. As you can see, I'm getting star ratings here, the pricing information, how many people, who's reviewed it, a lot of information, which is another example of rich results. One more example, if I look for the GoPro Hero 9, which is just recently announced, then I can see that instead of just one link in the SERPs, I'm getting these breadcrumbs, I'm getting the main link, I'm getting the pricing information, stock information, also some additional links that I can click to, which are related topics to the query that I made. Similar results you'll see in a bunch of other different links. So as you can see here, we have the star rating schema, and a bunch of other information. When was the post published? So this is one more example of rich results. Let's go to the recipe example because that's pretty popular. So if I Google how to cook butter chicken, how to cook, I just added the A by mistake, how to cook butter chicken. So instead of the regular links, you see some interesting schema that Google's pushing videos and special kinds of results first. Then even in the search results, I'm getting images, I'm getting star ratings, how many people voted or gave it the ratings, and how much time does it take to cook this, and how much calories does it have, and also videos. And the entire search results is probably completely opposite to one that you would expect just a few years ago. So where do you think all this information that Google is giving you coming from? For example, we saw star ratings, we saw the concert tickets, we saw the pricing information, stock information, who reviewed it, how much time recipes take to cook. Where is this information coming from? Is Google smart enough to deduce all this information by itself? No, that might happen in the near future, but right now Google is not smart enough to do that. So all this information is being provided by the website owner through schema, because schema is structured data that you add on to your website, which helps Google understand your content. So all this information that you see right here, the number of reviews that visitors have left, this is added to the code of the website. The information about how much time the recipe takes to cook is added to the website, and also the number of calories that this recipe has is also added to the website using schema, and that is how Google is picking it up. Now let me give you a comparison example of that. If you think, okay, I can do well without schema, my website does not need schema. So let me just give you a brief comparison on how your website will appear in the search results compared to something like this. Okay, so I just did a random query. It's not a complete apples to apples comparison, but just hear me out. So if I scroll down, and this is how the results look like without schema or without much rich results. It's boring, bland piece of links, if you can call that. There's nothing exciting about any of these, and I'm not inclined to click any of this. I'll have to spend time understanding whether the titles and other information is actually valuable. Now, compared to this, what do you think is more attractive? What do you think catches the eye faster? So if you're not implementing schema and your competitor is, you're going to lose to them in the search results, because you're not going to get tracked any of the clicks that you deserve if your website is producing high quality content. That is why you need to have schema on your website today. And let's not forget about the voice-enabled devices. Now we have smart TVs that are voice-enabled. We have Google Homes and the Apple AirPods, not the AirPods, sorry, the HomePod, and the Amazon Echo devices that uses Alexa. And we have a bunch of different IoT smart devices. Now microwaves can talk, refrigerators can talk. So all of these devices, when you ask questions to them, or when they have to retrieve some rich results, then where do you think Google will get this information from? From websites that have the schema properly added to the website. That is why schema is critical to have today, and also if you want to future-proof your website's traffic and the growth of your business if your website is part of that. So that is why schema is as important as it can be, and you cannot live without it today and tomorrow. All right, that was all about schema that you needed to know. So let's get back to my website and I'll show you what Schema Pro can do for your website. All right. I'm inside my website's admin area, and this is what you will see when you install Schema Pro for the first time. Not talking about this because this will depend on your website. I'm talking about this notice right here, which says not sure where to start with Schema Pro, check out the setup wizard. And it's a link to the setup wizard that is very, very important. So before we start, I'll just give you one line introduction of what this setup wizard does. As all the examples I showed you were schema related to the content of a website. As you see, the recipes were just part of the content of the website, the reviews and the concert tickets, everything was part of, or the schema was related to the content of the website. But schema is also important to add to your website to tell Google what your website is about. Is it an organization type website? Is it a personal blog, or is it a food-based website? What's your official social media handles? All the good stuff. So that is where the setup wizard comes in. So I'll start the setup wizard and you will see what it does. So this is the first step in the setup wizard. It's just a welcome screen. You can read this information. It's not important, but just click this next button or the start button. So this is the general tab, and this is where we tell Google what our website does. So this website represents, you have the option of choosing a personal website or business website, and you have a bunch of options to choose from. So right now I'll just choose the personal website option, and I can write the name of the blog here. I can choose the logo, and if you already set up the logo using the WordPress customizer, then Schema Pro actually picks it up. Let's click the next button to go to the next step. So this is where we tell Google what the official social media handles for our or your website are. So you can enter the Facebook, YouTube, Pinterest, SoundCloud, Wikipedia, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and MySpace URL of your website. The official handles, of course. You don't have to add all of them, only the ones you're most active on. So probably Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter would do. Let's click the next button. Okay, so this is the other schemas tab, and here you select the important pages of your website. So here you would select the official about page of your website. Here you would select the contact page of your website. Here you select the menu for the site link schema. Now if your website appears in the site links, I'll put up an image on the screen for an example what site links are. So then you can set up a menu or select a menu here, and Google will recognize that those are the most important pages for your website. So then if your website qualifies for the site links, those will be the links that will be used. So enable site links search box. If you have this option enabled, Google will also put up a search box in between the site links if your website qualifies for it. Enable breadcrumbs. If you remember, one of the results that I showed you had breadcrumbs in the search results, or actually most of the results now are coming up with breadcrumbs in the search results. And breadcrumbs are also important to have in the search results because they give a relevancy signal, and that's why it's enabled by default. And you should enable it on your website as well. Let's click the next button and done. So this was the setup process. Now you've set up the base schema of your website, and with that, Google will understand what your website is about. So this is the end of the setup process, not the schema part. So now we can go and create the first schema on our website, or you can exit the setup wizard, both are fine. But since this is a walkthrough video, I'll go into creating the first schema directly from this button right here. So this is the screen that you'll see when you're trying to create a new kind of schema on your website. And I'll also show you later in the video how to get to this step without the setup wizard. It's pretty simple to do. So before we actually select one of the schemas and start creating a schema, let me give you a quick overview of how Schema Pro works and how is the automation part that I mentioned, how it helps you create a lot of schema or add schema to a lot of pages quickly. So the idea behind Schema Pro is that you create templates. So when you create any kind of schema, you don't create schema to add it to just one page, but what you do is create a template that can be used for many pages on your website. For example, if you are running an e-commerce website, all the product pages would have similar kind of schema, which will have similar product details and other information about the product. So what you would do is select a product type schema and then add it to all the products on your website. How will you add the product schema to all the products on your website? That is going to be in the next step, so don't worry about that. So coming back, you have the option of creating all these kinds of schema, and whenever you create one type of schema, you can add it to hundreds or thousands of pages at once also, and that is how Schema Pro saves you a bunch of time. So at the date of this recording, Schema Pro supports the article, book, course, event, job posting, local business, review, person, product, recipe, service, software application, video object, FAQ, and how-to schema types. And you can select any of those to create a schema. And before I forget, we have done dedicated videos about the setup wizard and also each of these schema types. We've shown you how to add the schema to your website in detail and also covered the specific details of each of these schema types in dedicated videos. So if you find the details on this video not up to the mark, or you're confused about some of the options, don't worry about that. We have dedicated videos for them. I'll try to link them up in the description, or I'll add a playlist to the I button on YouTube so you can check them out. Don't worry about that. Everything will be covered in detail. So at the date of this recording, Schema Pro supports the article, book, course, event, job posting, local business, review, person, product, recipe, service, software application, video object, FAQ, and how-to schema types. That's a lot, and we keep continuously adding more schema types to be supported. So since this is a walkthrough video, I'll just give you a quick example of how we'll be adding some of the options, or how we'll be adding schema to our pages and posts. So I'll choose the article schema type because it's the simplest. We don't need to configure it much. I'll choose it and click the next button. Okay, so these are the targeting options, and this is where you decide where the schema is applied, or on which pages, posts, or custom posts your schema should be applied on. So you have two types of options. You have inclusion options. So if you select some of the pages, posts here, then schema will be applied to those posts. And if you select some pages here, which are the exclusion options, then schema will not be applied to those pages. So let me show you the options. So you have the option of choosing singulars, all singulars, that means all pages and posts, the front page, all posts, all pages, or you can specifically target pages, posts, or categories. Now this is the most powerful option because this lets you configure schema on any kind of category, taxonomy, or even particular pages or posts. So all you have to do is just select this option, and then what you have to do is type in the name of the category or the post, and Schema Pro will search and give you the results for all the keywords or all the pages, posts, and taxonomies that have the matching keywords that you enter, and then you can select it. Since this is a walkthrough video, I won't be going into the details because it'll make the video a little bit longer than I intend to. So what I'll do is just select the all singulars option. That means all the pages and posts on my website will get the article schema. I'll click the next button. All right, I've created a schema, and I'll click the complete setup wizard to save the schema and show you the additional settings that you can configure with all types of schema. So this is the edit schema screen, and this is a screen you will see after you create any kind of schema, and it lets you configure and change some of the details that you configured using the schema creator. So you have a bunch of options, but some of the options are the same that you saw in the previous screens where you were editing or creating the schema. So you have the name of the schema, and you can actually change the name of the schema, because if you have supposedly multiple types of articles, you want to configure them differently or add different kinds of schema, then you can create multiple templates, and once you name them, you'll be able to identify what kind of schema goes to which pages. So it gives you an additional level of control. Then you have the targeting options. You can change them anytime. They are currently set to the options that I selected in the previous setting or the previous window. Then coming to the all schema fields. Now this is the most important aspect of checking out or configuring the schema with Schema Pro, because this is where you configure how Schema Pro will fetch the data from your pages and posts and add it to the schema. If you've been using Schema for some time now, then you probably have noticed that a lot of the information that you would want to add to schema is already present on the page or post in some way. For example, the article type, the author name, the image, or the description, the URL of the page, the headline, the published date, and all this information is either present on the page or is present in the metadata of the page. And instead of having to type it in manually all the time, Schema Pro just maps this information from the post itself, saving you a bunch of time. So all you have to do is add the schema to a page, and most of the fields will be pulled in by Schema Pro automatically. So this is the automation that makes your life much easier when dealing with schema. And the other benefit of having this approach, or the variable based or mapping based approach, is that schema is always up to date. So if you go back to and change any of the posts, change the information, change the URL, change the publish date or modify it, then all this information will automatically be updated. That means schema will always be up to date, which is a huge deal when you are dealing with schema. And that is one of our additional benefits. So coming to the actual fields that we were going to talk about, these are the fields that we need to set up in the article type schema. And if you have confusions, or if you're not sure how to configure them, then we have a dedicated article on all schema types. So this is the article type schema we're dealing with. So this link points to the article type schema. If I open this link, a new tab will open up on your website or your computer, where you can go and check out all the details about the article type schema, including how to configure these variables. So if you have any confusion about that, you can always refer to this blog post, and this blog post will be linked in all the schema types that you create. So whatever schema type you are working with, the blog post will be linked for that particular type of schema. Now let's talk about the fields themselves, because there are some important things that you need to know about the fields before you start configuring them. So there are two types of fields. One are mandatory fields and the other are recommended fields. So the mandatory fields are highlighted with this red asterisk right here. As you can see, there are a bunch of mandatory fields, and if you don't configure them on your page or post or inside the template, then schema will not be valid on your website, and Google will not consider your page for rich results. And these additional fields, which you can see, which are not mandatory, they are recommended fields. So even if you don't fill them in, or if you're not using variables or mapping to fill them in, then it's all right. Google will still consider your page for rich results, but it is worthwhile to invest the time and filling them up, because then Google will have additional information about your page with the help of schema. So right now, we're not going to go into the individual settings or what they're about, because as I said, we will be doing, or we have already done, dedicated videos for each schema type where we go into these settings in a lot more detail. So what I'm going to do is save these schema, click the update button, and I'm going to show you how it appears, or how the schema appears on a page or post. And I'm going to give you some striking, interesting details that you might want to know. So first, before I do that, I'll show you the all schemas page where the schemas will live. Whatever schemas you create, this is the page all the schema types you create will live. For example, I just created this schema, so it's right here on top. Rest are drafts that I added. Just to give you an example, this is how the various types of schema that you create will appear. So what you can do anytime you want, you can go into any of these settings or any of the schemas, edit the settings that I just showed you inside the options. And also, if you want to create new schemas, you just have to click the add new button. So when I mentioned that I'll be showing you how to create new schemas from Schema Pro, so you have to go into Schema Pro settings and add new, and you will be able to create new schema types. All right, let's go to a particular page or post, and I'll show you how the schema looks like on the page itself. And after we've done that, we'll test the schema and also show you the information here in these settings and what the significance of these settings are. So let's go on to a particular page or post. All right, I'm inside a post on my website, and as you can see, there's a bunch of content and there's a featured image added also, which will be loading in a second, and a bunch of information. It looks like a regular post that you would see on your website. So to see the schema added to the page, or how the schema is configured on this page, all I have to do is scroll down, and this is where I'll see Schema Pro article. Just to give you some additional information, a lot of times you'll need to add multiple types of schema to a single page or post, and you can do that with schema. Just create a different type of schema and add it to the pages. And what will happen if you add more than one type of schema? They'll appear as tabs here. So you'll see the article tab in one more tab, and then you'll be able to switch between them and configure all the settings for all the types of schema that you add to a page or post. So these are all the settings that we just saw inside the schema editing screen, and these were all being configured. So the benefit or the interesting part to know about this is that when you see this link in front of a setting, that means it's a linked field or a linked setting. What that means is that Schema Pro is fetching the information for the schema from the post itself. So when you have the image field to be selected, it's actually mapped to the featured image on your website or this post particularly. So this will be used inside the schema. When you have the URL, it's the permalink of this post, which is being pulled in from the post itself. The publish date is being pulled in from the publish date. The publisher name is being pulled from the site title, and all the information where you see this icon is being pulled in from the post or the post metadata itself. So you don't have to do anything. All the fields are being pulled in from the post or your website itself, and schema is actually complete on your website. Now you do have the control over editing these settings, and the beauty of using Schema Pro is that if you change any of these settings, the template will not be affected. That means you can have one template that adds schema to multiple posts and still retain individual control over the schema on each of those posts. For example, if for this particular post, if I don't like the featured image as the schema, going into the schema, what I can do is just click this icon, and then I can select a new image from the WordPress gallery, and then that will be added to the schema. And that change will only be affecting this post, not the template. So the rest of the posts are still fine. And if you want to go back to one of the map fields, you can click this wrench icon, and then you will have the featured image. Or if you can actually click this, and you will have the option of selecting any of the other fields that are supported in this field. So I'll just go to the featured image section, and you'll be able to notice that if I change the field, it appears not grayed out. So that means I have customized this setting. So this is how you customize settings with Schema Pro. Not that you need to, but it's worthwhile knowing that the option actually exists for you to customize any of the settings on a page or per page basis or per post basis without affecting any other page or post that is using the schema template that you created. So we created the schema, we added the schema to the page or post. What I'll do is update the post, and we'll check if the schema is added correctly onto the website. So what I'll do is update this post. Okay, the post is updated. I already had the post opened in a new tab. So this is the post. I'll just refresh this page once again. And now we'll test the schema. The normal process to check the schema would be to open the Google Rich Snippet Testing tool in another tab, copy the link of this page, go to that the tool, paste the link, and start the Analyze button. But with Schema Pro, that process is also a little bit automated. If you enable the option inside the settings, Schema Pro will add this Test Schema button on all the pages and posts. And what you have to do is just click this button, and Schema Pro will open the Google Rich Snippet Testing tool, paste the link of the page that you want to test the schema for, and also start the process of analyzing the schema. As you can see on the screen, the process has begun, and once it is done, I'll show you if the schema is valid or not. All right, the testing is now complete, and as you can see, the page is eligible for rich results, and Google has detected the article type schema. I think if you want to check the details, you can click this button right here and see all the details that we added with the schema using Schema Pro are now being detected by Google, and page is now eligible for its results. So in essence, all you had to do was create a single type of schema, and no field mapping was done. Technically, you created the schema type, just selected the pages that it should appear on, and just clicked save. And all the pages and posts that were eligible in the targeting options all got the article schema, and every schema is now valid. And I also can change the schema on individual pages and posts as I did or I demonstrated, and schema will still be valid on all the posts. Isn't that amazing? Adding schema to hundreds of pages or posts in just a few clicks or few minutes of your time, and every page on your website or a bunch of pages on your website can have valid schema, and which will automatically be updated every time you make changes to the page. That, in my opinion, that is amazing, and that saves so much time when you're dealing with a lot of content or a lot of pages on your website. Alright, so now we've dealt with schema. I've shown you how to add schema. Now let's get back to the website and inside the admin area, and I'll show you some of the other settings that Schema Pro has and how they can be useful to you. Alright, I'm back inside the settings, and this is the same screen that I showed you earlier, which is where you will see all the schema types, and you'll find all these settings under Settings, Schema Pro, and you have a bunch of other tabs, and I'll just go through the tabs one by one to show you what the settings are. Let's go to the website information tab. So essentially, the settings in this tab are the same settings that you saw inside the setup wizard. These settings are available here if you want to change it. As you can see, you have the website represents, the logo, what website name, the social profiles, the contact information. This is not present in the schema or the setup wizard because this is not mandated by Google. But if you go inside the tab, what you can do is set up some contact information for your website. And what will happen is, if your website appears in the knowledge graph, then this contact information may appear in the knowledge graph. I'll put up an image on the screen and I'll show you how that looks like when you search for it or when it appears in the knowledge graph. So depending on your website, this might or might not be useful. The other schemas tab is the same that we discovered or we shared. In the setup wizard, the same settings appear. You have to select the pages here. And on the right hand side, you have the process or the option of selecting or starting the setup wizard once again by clicking this button. And this option is also very important, regenerate schema. Sometimes when you're using schema or a bunch of other plugins, you might have issues. In rare cases, if you change some plugins or there's a caching issue, then what you can do is click this button. And what Schema Pro will do is clear out all the schema on your website and regenerate the schema based on the rules and the mappings that you've done. So this will not change any of the settings. This will not delete all the conditions and the schema templates that you've created. What it will do, just discard the existing schema added to the post or page and recreate it based on the information that you've already provided. So nothing will change just because you click this button, but it might help you alleviate some of the issues if you face those issues. So it's a handy tool to have if you need it. You can also learn more about this by clicking this link right here. And also we have a handy link to our knowledge base where we discuss all things schema, how to configure it, what are the schema guidelines, how to add it, and all a bunch of information you can click or visit the knowledge base by clicking the link right here. Let's go to the Breadcrumbs tab. Going back to the setup wizard, I remember the last tab had the breadcrumb option, and I did mention that breadcrumbs are appearing in the search results, and breadcrumbs has its additional own settings right here, and you have a bunch of options. You can enable them and also insert a taxonomy in between the website URL and the resulting landing page URL. So we have a dedicated video on the breadcrumbs itself. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll refer it to that you watch that video. I'll link it up in the description or in the playlist in the I button on top right of this screen. Let's go to the plugin settings. So plugin settings are where you configure how Schema Pro behaves or how you want to configure it. So this is the enable test link in toolbar. This is just the link that we used to check the schema for the page. So it's enabled. If you want to disable it for some reason, then you can disable it. Otherwise, I would recommend leave it enabled. It just adds a lot of convenience when you're testing schema on certain pages. Second option is display Schema Pro menu under. So this lets you configure where you want the Schema Pro settings to appear. So if you have a bunch of options here and you want to change it from settings to somewhere else, you can select this option right here. You have a bunch of options. So I'll just leave it to settings right now. Next is the add schema code in. So schema code is metadata and it can be added to the head or just the footer or the end of your pages. We recommend that you keep it to the header because then schema can be passed by Google as it's loading the page. The next option is add default image. So a lot of times, as you notice in the article schema 2, Google requires that you add an image URL to the schema for it to be valid. And sometimes you don't add images to your post and for some reason you don't have the time. Then what you can do is select one image right here, which will be added to all the pages and posts by default, which do not have an image added to it. So then what happens is when you do this, then schema will always be valid, because if you don't add any of the mandatory information inside schema, then Google actually rejects the schema. So this helps you avoid that issue. And I'll be talking about that again in a minute, so stay tuned for that. So this option is very important, skip rendering invalid schema. So if you enable this option, then what Schema Pro will do is whenever it detects incomplete or invalid schema on your page, then Schema Pro will not add any of the schema to your page. Because in most cases, if you want to avoid issues with Google, it is better to have no schema on the page rather than having incomplete schema on the page. So this option can help you there. If you add incomplete schema to your pages, then just enable this option, and whenever Schema Pro detects that you have incomplete schema, it will skip the adding part of the schema altogether to the page. Next option is delete data on uninstall. So if you want to uninstall Schema Pro and delete all its settings at the same time, then you can enable this option. And when you disable or delete Schema Pro actually, then what will happen is all the settings will also be deleted. But if you're doing it temporarily, then don't enable this, and then Schema Pro will preserve some of these settings. And when you reinstall Schema Pro, all the settings will all be available for you as well. Going to the white label options. So white label options are generally useful for agency owners or developers who are dealing with clients. It helps you rename the plugin as your own. So it just simplifies the process for your clients. They know where to reach you, and you can just change the links from Schema Pro to your website. So your clients are not worried about where to actually get support for some schema issues they might have. And it also helps you bundle your services in a complete package rather than having multiple packages. And it also helps you charge appropriately for your services, because just buying a plugin is not the service that you provide. It's actually the knowledge of configuring the plugin and properly optimizing schema is what you should be charging for. And sometimes clients may argue with you that why are you charging X amount of money when the plugin itself costs X amount of money. So this helps you avoid all these issues and also streamline your business operations in the process. So we've done a dedicated video on the white label options as well. So if you're interested in knowing more about them, then I recommend you check out that video. So coming to one of the most important settings that I did not cover earlier because I wanted to cover a setting before. Let's go back to the plugin settings and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I was talking about skip rendering invalid schema. Now this is an important option to understand, and Schema Pro will also give you some additional visual feedback if your schema is incomplete. So let's go back to the page or post that we edited and I'll show you what I mean, because this is also very important to understand when working with schema. All right, I'm back in the page that we just tested for schema, and all the fields are the same. They are mapped to the current existing fields. Now, how does Schema Pro warn you about incomplete schema? I'll show you with an example. What I'll do is go here and click this field and make it empty, update the post, and refresh the post. All right, the page is refreshed. So let's check out the schema once again. And as you can see, the schema or the author name schema is now empty, but you would also notice that the author name is now appearing in red. Now, this is a visual sign from Schema Pro that this is a mandatory field and nothing has been put in. So schema, if you add it or update the post like that, then the schema will not be valid, and then you will have issues with Google, or Google will reject the page. And if you have the option that I talked about turned on, which was skip rendering invalid type schema, then if you update the post, then Schema Pro will not add any of the schema to the page to avoid this issue. But I wanted to highlight how Schema Pro warns you about incomplete schema with the visual representation of the schema types or the fields right here in the post, so that you can avoid issues with that. So let me fix the schema once again, and I'll refresh the page and I'll get back to it. I don't want to show you the process again. All right, I've updated the post and I've refreshed the page once again, and as you can see, the author name is now once again filled in as I configured it, and now the field is appearing in black once again, highlighting that it's a valid information has been filled in the schema. So those were important things to know, and when you use Schema Pro, it'll help you avoid issues with schema when implementing them on a lot of pages and posts. So I've covered almost everything that you needed to know about Schema Pro, the benefits of schema, how to add schema, what are the settings inside Schema Pro, and how you can use it to avoid issues with schema. And when dealing with Google, we also tested the schema out and everything worked fine, perfectly. And I showed you how easy it was to add schema to multiple pages and posts while retaining individual control. And by the advanced targeting options, you can fine tune the pages that get what type of schema, and you can also add multiple types of schema to pages which need them. Also, one important thing to know is that Schema Pro works wonderfully well or compatible with other plugins like Elementor or Yoast SEO. So other SEO plugins are fine. Even custom fields. So whenever you have plugins which require custom fields or custom post types, Schema Pro is completely compatible with all of them, and you won't have any issues when you're using any of those plugins. So you can use any plugin and won't have any issues. So that's all you needed to know about Schema Pro and how to use it to add schema to your pages and posts. But before we end this video, I did promise a free gift for you guys who are watching till the end. So if you're a Schema Pro customer or not, this gift is for you. And this gift is a complete course on schema, on how to implement schema, regardless whether you're using Schema Pro on your website. It's a comprehensive course that will teach you on the benefits of schema, how to use it to outrank the competition, and what schema markup is, all the details, Google's guidelines, and interesting information that you need to know if you want to use Schema Pro to your advantage to beat your competition in the search results. So once you've completed this course, you will have all the knowledge you need to start implementing schema on all kinds of pages, regardless of what type of website you have. So all you have to do is go to skilljet.io. I'll also leave a link in the description directly to this course, so you can come in, and all you have to do is sign up and start consuming this wonderful course, and you will become a master of schema very quickly. And that's all for the video, guys. I hope you liked the video. Even if you liked the video a little bit, make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video. It does encourage me and the entire team to create helpful videos like these for you guys. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel by hitting that subscribe button and smash that bell icon, because we'll send you notifications about all the new videos that we create. And as you saw, we do create very helpful videos, comprehensive videos about WordPress, tutorials about our products, and all the other good stuff. So if you want to improve your website knowledge, or you want to outrank your competition, grow your business or your website-based business, then this is the channel that you need to be subscribed to. And if you have any issues with using Schema Pro and you're a customer, go to wpschema.com, just raise a support ticket there, and don't forget to check out the other wonderful products that we create. Brainstorm Force, we have created the Astra theme and some bunch of interesting products for WordPress, so don't forget to check them out. Once again, my name is Yuvraj, you're watching Brainstorm Force's YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.